Hi, everyone. Wow, that's a lot of crowd. So, have you ever had a moment in your career when you felt like everything is going according to plan? Like you work in a big tech company, your team is growing, the company is doing all the right things. You have so many mentors, so many colleagues you can learn from, and leaders who sponsor you and sponsor your growth. Just, you're a rising star. I had a moment like that. It was 2 years ago. I have been working at Meta for 3 years at that point. My team was growing significantly. We were in a process of doubling in size. I had been waiting for the opportunity to hire like that for so long, so when it finally happened, I was so excited. I was so excited that when the first new joiner came to my team, I just decided to join them to the new hire orientation. I wanted to see how his onboarding experience looks like. I just wanted to make sure that he will have the best onboarding ever. So imagine this. I'm sitting in Meta's new hire orientation. Next to me is that new joiner who just joined my team. The room full of young 20-something years old, many of them landing their first tech job. All of them buzzing to start. On stage, a senior manager I know well. I've used almost all the tools his team built on a daily basis. Tools which, before joining Meta, I didn't even believe existed. I look up to him. I quietly hope my own career will grow to a similar state as his. I was hoping that I will be able to land an impact similar to his team with my team. I was really excited to listen to him talk. His talk was about AI adoption. Since he was leading the organization which developed the internal integration with the AI tools, they invited him to teach the new hires which tool exists and which didn't, and basically how to use them. So I thought to myself, it is nice. When I joined Meta, I didn't have that opportunity, and it took me a long time to figure out which tool exists and which not. So I was excited. He's explaining what LLM means, large language model. And I'm thinking to myself, I wonder how many in here already knew that. Then, he's trying to teach the room how to write a prompt, saying things like, you need to give a role to your agent, or context is important. Let me explain to you what tokens are. And I'm thinking to myself, it sounds very basic. I mean, it would be weird if someone here who just hired into Meta didn't already know that. It felt like he was reading a well-memorized script, which any of the new hires around the room could have written. Then comes the Q&A. One of the new hires raises a hand and asks a question about vibe coding. The speaker freezes, mumbles something, and moves on. He has no idea what vibe coding is, and he is afraid to ask. So hi, I'm Danit. I'm a software engineer manager at Meta, and this story is how I started my journey into the AI era. I am not an early adopter. I'm a traditionalist. I work with a notebook and pen, and I refuse to replace my phone unless I really, really have to. But in that moment, when I saw the manager's embarrassment, I couldn't help thinking what it would have been like for me to be up there. I got scared. That is when I realized I have to do something. This is not just a generational gap. This is an era where all of us leaders are required to adapt to a technology that didn't even exist for the majority of our career. Walking out of that orientation room, I started debugging it. Was that moment on stage is just one manager's failure, or was it our whole system breaking? And I was worried. I just hired a bunch of new joiners to my team. How am I going to manage them? Do I still have the tools to lead them? First, our front door was broken. Traditional coding interviews were failing because candidates were using tools like Interview Coder to cheat their way into the company. Then, our calibration and growth broke. The bar wasn't clear, engineers' career expectations were a mystery, and I'm not even talking about career goals. And the worst part? I had no idea how to lead. How can I teach a team to use a tool I don't know how to use myself? Or how to learn what exists? How to predict what will be in the future? My 20 years of experience were worthless. Even worse, those years hold me back. So I had a choice. I could panic, try to ban AI and cling back to my comfort zone, hoping to find a new workplace which will do the same. Or I could rewrite the playbook, rebuild the foundations of our engineering culture, how we hire, how we evaluate, and how we lead. I chose to rebuild. The first thing I focused on was the way we hire. So we saw a tool called Interview Coder. Probably most of you already saw that tool around your company. Basically, the AI have been able to create a non-detectable overlay of the coded solution and the thoughts of the candidate on top of the screen. Even with screen sharing, no one would have been able to see it but the candidate. So basically, the candidate has all the answers in front of their face. All they needed to do is just type it in. My grandma could have passed this interview. My first instinct was in in-person interviews. If they have a tool, let's put them in the office where they cannot use the tool, and that's it, problem solved, right? So no, that was just a plaster. It was me trying to run into my comfort zone again. The truth is, those engineers who has a problem in front of their face, and then they find the right tool to solve that problem, and learn how to use that tool in a way that will help them to solve their problem, those are the engineers we need. So yes, less the cheating part, but we definitely want to see those engineers who know how to find the different tools in this sea of AI tools that are attacking us in a way, and learn how to use them. those are the engineers who will thrive in an AI-native environment. So I joined a thinking group, gathered people with knowledge in different areas who are passionate about hiring. I'm talking about senior engineers, leaders, juniors, recruiters, analysts. We all sat together and started questioning coding, how coding used to look and how it looks now. We discussed about the original coding interviews and how that was developed, how we pulled out the pure skills that needed for an engineer to code well, and how we're going to measure that in an interview. Then, we try to assess how coding will look like in the future. And when we explore that, we also try to define which skills we will need now and how those will be able to define in an interview. Now, remember, it was early 2025. So obvious principle that we see now, back then, that was a huge struggle. Senior engineer pushed back. I heard sentences like, I am here over a decade. I know how things work. This AI thing, it will pass. Engineers saw AI as a problem that wastes our time, that reduces the code quality, keeps the engineers average, and causes outages in production. They weren't fully wrong. Junior engineers started to use AI, and basically I believe that most of you had a chance to see that as well. Junior engineers just come into the company, oh, I have this great tool that can write the code for me. They don't even bother to write that code, try to land it, and then some of the senior engineers need to catch it a moment before it hit production. So we had to find a way to balance this out, to try to explain how we want to avoid this level and make sure that the engineers will know how to validate the code, but also not ignore the tool completely. So it took time to evolve from this level of discussion into a different level of discussion where we talked about the different skills of AI and if we want the use of AI to be mandatory in an interview or not. So we developed a full coding environment. Basically, engineers were able to see all the files in the coding interview, and they had an AI assistant which they can leverage in order to learn about the code base in front of them. Sort of like simulate how real-world coding looks like. Now, each question, full code base, it cannot be explored without AI. That's how we bypass this question of are we making it mandatory or not. This is the bar. If you can reach it without AI, great. That wasn't as easy as it seems. We saw a lot of back and forth with it. I will talk about it a little bit later. So we needed then to define the assessment criteria. What counted as passing the interview? What do we care about? Now, what really surprised me is that the assessment criteria didn't really change. The only thing that changed is the way we look at it. So, problem exploration, for example. In traditional interviews, it used to be back and forth with the interviewer. The interviewer used to present a vague problem, and then the candidates were asking questions, and the vague problem became clearer and clearer in time. In an AI-native interviews, the back and forth is with AI assistants. The question the candidate asks the AI assistant, their prompting skills, the interviewer at that point is just observing this communication. Same thing with coding. how fast can they produce code? In the traditional interviews, our expectation were basically how much you can write on a whiteboard. But with AI assistant, the bar of how much code you can produce, and we expect you to produce, moved higher. But we still expect high-quality code produced, a code that solves the problem, that is easy to maintain and easy to validate. We want to avoid an over-engineering with the code that's been produced. And in validation, so we don't want engineers who assume the code is working, and we also don't want engineers who assume the AI assistant gave them a working code, or a code that does what they ask them to. So how do we check that? We want to see that they can, we want to see the questions they ask back and forth with the AI. How do they validate the AI output? Do they know to recognize AI slops and get rid of that? And we also want to see the traditional quality levels. Which tests do they run? Which follow-up questions do they have? Communication pretty much stayed the same. The only thing that changed is that we are placing it in the forefront of what we evaluate. And there are two reasons for that. The first reason is that communication now measured twice. It is the communication of the candidate with the interviewer, how it used to be, but this is also the communication the candidate has with the AI assistant. So we have two instances of it, the verbal communication, but also the written one. The second reason is something I believe most of you here feels. As AI has evolved into our lives, people have stopped writing themselves. AI helps all of us with grammar, scripting, almost everything we do around communication. AI helped me, it grammar-proofed this whole slide. So if your communication skills were originally poor, now it will be even worse. So we made it. We launched our first AI interview in September 2025. Meta was the first company to launch AI interviews, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that still from the big tech company, Meta is still the only one interviewing like that today. Ever since, we managed to conduct 9,000 interviews and train 5,000 interviewers. Now, that wasn't easy. We had a lot of trade-off between state-of-the-art models and the process of writing questions. To produce a real code base that will be that heavy and will be with an hour of an interview and an AI assistant, we still will be able to make progress. That takes a lot of time. And then a new model of Claude is out, and suddenly it solves this question in 10 minutes. So we needed to create a big team of engineers who kept chasing the state-of-the-art models, and every time we decided to upgrade the model we allow the engineers to interview with, we needed to upgrade all the questions. And we also needed to have a solid question bank, because this is very interesting. We are the only company interviewing like that. Questions will leak. So we cannot only have 3 or 4 questions, right? The other challenge that we have is to train all those interviewers. 5,000 interviewers is a lot. And to make sure that all of them has the right mindset, the right bar, that they even understand basics of, this is not the regular interview you used to do, this is the first time you do that, and that they will have a chance to train. We had to create a full system of mock interviews versus regular interviews. Last April, Meta moved to fully AI-native hiring process and abandoned completely the classic Sui coding interviews. This is one of the biggest wins of Meta in the past 2 years, and to be honest, this is the biggest win of my career by now. So it worked. We fixed the front door. But the moment those engineers will walk into our doors, how are we expected to evaluate them? I started thinking about my early career as a manager. How did I learn to calibrate myself? What made me put my expectations bar where it is? Well, it was my experience. It was different engineers in different levels and different skills, and me exploring the impact that they were able to achieve. Me comparing engineers in different levels and learn what to expect from an IC4 versus IC6, 7, and so on. As I saw more and more engineers, I developed my own sense of expectations, my own bar. Now, everyone keeps telling me that with AI, the bar should be higher. So I thought to myself, great, I will just raise the bar. Now, juniors can be mid-level, mid-level will be seniors. That's it, right? I thought I know what I'm doing. But that was just my comfort zone, trying to push in again. The truth is that the real bar kept moving up. We saw new tools, new capabilities. The only way to catch up was to keep calibrate. We had countless sessions with peer managers, and I discussed about what their engineers were able to achieve, and it was sometimes even on a weekly basis. We needed to add more and more dots to this graph, and we needed to do that fast and continuously through time. That was the only way we could stay up to date and understand where the real bar is. The goals became current goals, and I credited the ambitious engineers who continuously kept hitting the goals month after month. Which brings me back to the final level, and the hardest one, the way we lead. Remember that senior manager from orientation? He froze because for his entire career, his value was tied to his knowledge. But this approach today can make your seniority a liability. You are anchored to traditional ways of doing things while the juniors flying past you. In the age of AI, your value is your ability to ask questions. Give the microphone to the power users. Let the junior engineers who adapted faster to lead and teach the rest of the team, to teach you. Make this a team effort. Run AI learning hours, AI hackathons, team demos. Create a safe environment. Talk about the failures that you created. Make sure your team feels comfortable to learn. Invest time and resources. Learning doesn't come free. It costs tokens, it costs time, it costs deadlines, which have to be pushed forward, but it's worth it. We don't need leaders who can vibe code better than the 20 years old. We need leaders who can create the psychological safety for the teams to learn. So when you are that senior manager and a kid asks you about something that you don't understand, don't freeze. You just have to be willing to ask them, what have they meant? The future isn't about knowledge. You are in a senior position not because you know everything. You are in a senior position because you know what to ask. Those who will thrive in the AI era are those who know how to adapt. I have no idea how the future is going to look like, but from what I've seen, I'm excited for it. Thank you.